Now it's time for Philipp Bouteiller of Berlin TXL. Welcome back to Ecosummit.
Thank you again. Thank you so much. It's great to be back here. Last time was last year in Amsterdam, and the last time in Berlin has been a while ago. The thing about the project is a lot has changed, in particular the opening date of our new airport. So that's been shifted to 18 now, so we are still sort of lady in waiting, feels a bit like Prince Charles. What it all is about, we are converting the existing airport of Tegel into the largest startup of Berlin by far. It's going to be a huge startup in tech space, and that's why the whole thing is relevant. However, the waiting has been so long that even the toy industry has discovered it. So there are legal projects about failed major projects, stuff you can never really finish, you're missing stones and stuff like that. And once you have finished it, there's a puzzle with 1 billion pieces, guaranteed never to be finished. So it's so mean and so unfair, really. However, what the project is about is this. So it's 5 square kilometers of area in the heart of Berlin. And in the very center of it, we have a 40-hectare space for universities, research labs, startup space, around that 70 hectares of commercial area and industry space for manufacturing. So from idea conception to mass manufacturing, you can cover everything in future technologies in Berlin TXL. Now, the whole thing is about 5% the size of the Cité de Paris, or 5% of Barcelona, just for comparison. That's how huge it is. So my team and I, we are at final planning stage. The whole thing is at the very center of Berlin, just 10 minutes away from Kurfürstendamm, 15 minutes to Angie. So incredibly centrally located and surrounded by the old traditional manufacturing area of Berlin. Now, why is this relevant? Because I said it's kind of like the biggest startup in Berlin, and now really it is time to disrupt cities. We are at that stage. AI, digitalization has been so strong over the last 5 years that in many, many areas we see incredible advances when it comes to public infrastructures, energy, and so forth. And cities are growing everywhere. Berlin, for instance, is growing by 5 to 6 people per hour net. Last year, we had a growth of 60,000 people. That's a whole city coming into Berlin. That's absolutely incredible. And of course, with this new density, we get new problems. On Earth, more than half of the world's population is living in cities now, on less than 3% of the Earth's surface. 75% of all resources are consumed in cities. However, 80% of value creation takes place in cities. That's why we say the city, as such, is the place where we can start to save the world. And we looked at the challenges of the 21st century, and of course, urbanization of those is the most important and also the biggest market. We have particularly picked 6 areas. The first is mobility, and we've seen several startups in the mobility space. We are in the field of energy, and again, Zon and others are active in exactly that field. Then, of course, recycling and water are 2 topics at our core. IT, of course, is obvious. Without IT, nothing's possible. And then new materials. Materials research is important for innovation in most fields. And it's a huge market. It's more than $5,000 billion per year market, and we want to have a stake of that. Now, new technologies are important, and I give you a few examples. For instance, we designed a new lamppost. It's multifunctional, it's got Wi-Fi, 5G, charging infrastructure, environmental sensors, and in the end, it also emits a bit of light. So there are several startups around that technology already. The whole theme of automated driving or autonomous driving will change the face of our cities. Again, many startups working in that field. Robotics, AI, no need to talk about that. Also in Berlin, there are quite a few startups in that field. The whole IoT ecosystem, everything around blockchain technologies. Also in the energy field, you see the advance of blockchain technologies for trading energy between private parties, an absolute revolution. Think about what you can do with augmented reality, also in the public space. It's absolutely incredible. So why not even think a bit more radical and begin to print a city? So this is a video from June 14. It's in China, and you see a little robot printing a house. Actually not one house, but 12 houses in a matter of 24 hours. They are ugly as night and you don't want to live in them, but it was a test. And they tested very successfully, so it does work. The printing of houses does work. Only half a year later, it looked like that. Then half a year later, it looked like that. My architect friends loathe it. It's absolutely terrible, but never mind. And now, last year in Dubai, they opened a 240 square meter, fully 3D printed building. It took 17 days, 15 days for printing and 2 days for assembly on the building side. And now this is the latest. This came out about a month ago. That's in Siberia, an American-Russian consortium, a new type of robot. And they, again, within 24 hours, printed a house. And the cost, including insulated glazing and everything, was roughly $285 per square meter. So absolutely incredible what's going on there currently. I'll cut it short. Singapore is planning a whole social housing area from printed houses. The Emir of Dubai said by 2030, 25% of all buildings should be printed. It's an absolute revolution going on there. So even the car industry is affected. And if you think about mobility, there's a fundamental shift going on. Of course, we talk about electrified, shared mobility. Just the last startup was about sharing. It's going to be autonomous. We are starting with electric mobility in Berlin, even in public transport. We have a bus line that's electrified, that's running. The autonomous driving is coming. By 2021, we see the first sort of real-life models from major manufacturers on the street. And of course, we've got a startup, you know it, Local Motors. They are building autonomous electric cars that are printed. So it's all coming together nicely. That's just one example I wanted to give and to encourage you as startups to look at the city space. I think that's where a lot of innovation is coming. For design, there are no more limits these days, which is great. And there's one more point, and that's a mantra for my whole team for the last 4 years, and that's the future is electric. It's so simple, but it's very compelling, because if electricity is renewable, then it's no longer evil. And then you can do a lot of nice stuff with that. You can drive around, you can heat, you can cool, you can manufacture, and that's going to change the whole landscape once again. So let's electrify everything. Just an example to give you an idea of the scope and scale in Germany alone. By 2000, we had 30,000 installations of renewable energy. The red dots are wind energy. The yellow dots are PV, photovoltaic. Forget biomass, doesn't count anymore today. By 2005, we had 200,000 installations. A few years later, we had 750,000 installations. We are 2010 now. By 2012, we had 1.3 million installations. And you see the red in the north and the yellow in the south, where it's more sunny. By 2015, we had 2.5 million installations. And the poor guy, sort of counting the dots, gave up basically. But we know that we are approaching 3 million installations by the end of last year. It's absolutely incredible what's going on. Now, storage hasn't been solved. But if you look at the price curve, there's a lot going on currently. And whilst it costs $10,000 per kilowatt hour storage in 2010, we are now, with the Gigafactory, approaching the $150 threshold per kilowatt hour, even faster than this graph suggests. When the Gigafactory is scaling up, we'll be somewhere between $120 and $140 per kilowatt hour, lithium-ion storage. And that's basically the message. We are there. We are there already. We've reached it. So for our project, we have identified roughly 140 innovative elements in the infrastructure area. We are implementing when we start building from 2019 onwards. And you're all invited to be part of that. I need sound.
For decades, we will create more urban space than we have in the last 4 millennia. We should build smart cities. Cities in which every rooftop absorbs the power of the sun, wind, or rain. Perhaps someday, all aeroplanes will be fueled with sunlight instead of kerosene. Maybe streets will even store braking power. And when do you think we'll start teleporting? We'll make steel as light as plastic, and plastic as sturdy as steel. We'll turn our plastic back into oil. How will we do this? By starting today. Berlin TXL. Think city, think future. From Tegel Airport, urban technologies take off. At Berlin TXL, ideas take flight. And from here, products find their way to markets. Startups meet academic research and industrial enterprises. Students meet engineers. New concepts meet years of experience. A tight network of universities, entrepreneurs, industry leaders and institutions. A learning structure, a system that reinforces itself. Here, the answers to tomorrow's challenges are developed today. Become part of the new Berlin. Let's work on the smart cities of tomorrow together at Berlin TXL, the Urban Tech Republic.
Thank you.